Welcome to the Raw Food Health Empowerment Show Season 2. We are back again, and I really miss this. I love doing my show, and I love interacting with all of you guys. Please share this video with someone you know who is suffering from asthma. We're going to be going into that, and there's also a checklist. On the link to this video is a checklist, 10 steps to alleviate asthma symptoms. So it's not just 10 different ways. It's like you know, step by step, things that you need to look out for first, second, third, fourth, fifth, to really help yourself with asthma symptoms, right? So let me introduce myself. My name is Samantha Salmon, certified holistic health coach and author of You Can Afford to Be Healthy. I see there's a couple people live with me now. Just give me a like, give me a heart, say something in the comments so I can see who you are and give you a shout out. So I wanted to talk about intuitive eating today because last season we dove in on paleo, ketogenic, and intermittent fasting. And, I think it's good to explore different diets because, like I've been saying, at different stages of your life, different diets are going to be better for you than other diets, right? So what you were doing in your 20s may not necessarily be what's going to work for you in your 30s. So you always have to be intuitive about your eating. So listen to your body, see what your body needs. And part of that, like when I say that to some people, be intuitive, they don't quite understand how to do that exactly. It gets easier with the more fruits and vegetables that you include in your diet. So that's the basic minimum. Regardless of any diet that you're doing, you want to have as many fruits and vegetables in your meals as much as possible, because that's the foods that have the phytonutrients, the enzymes, the minerals, the vitamins that the cells of your body need to thrive so that your body is working at its optimal, at its best. The body's always working to heal and preserve itself, right? It's a smart biocomputer. It knows what to do. It just needs to be supported with the right choices. So this is where being intuitive comes into play. So the more natural, healthy, whole foods you're putting in your body in as raw as possible. Why I say raw? Because when you cook the food beyond 120 degrees, you lose those enzymes. And the enzymes are needed to actually digest the food and break it down so we can assimilate it. So you want to make your food have as many raw foods as possible, as many fruits and vegetables as possible, and your palate will change, your cravings will change, all of those things will change. You become then more intuitive. You start to hear things and feel things going on with your body that you probably weren't privy to before. So you become, I guess they say, more sensitive, but actually your body is just reacting a lot faster. It's not being numbed or dumbed down with artificial sugars, flavorings, chemicals, all these things. It's actually communicating better with, these foods and these minerals, vitamins, enzymes. So once you become in tune, right, that's the first step, is basically to eat as many fruits and vegetables as possible and listen to your body. And if there's a diet that's in alignment with what you feel your body needs, experiment with it. That's completely fine. Any diet, like I talked about last season, any diet that's promoting animal products, dairy, that's not a good diet to follow. If it's saying that needs to be the majority of your meals, protein needs to be the majority of your meal, that's not a good diet to follow. Excessive protein puts stress on the kidneys. And animal, we talked about this. You can check on the blog. Science says meat is not meant for human consumption. We went into this. You can, if you're on Facebook, you can look in the video log. If you're on YouTube, you can look on the videos. We talked about this. where basically saturated fat, cholesterol, we don't really need to eat cholesterol. Our body's making its own cholesterol. We want to support the body, support the cardiovascular system. We want to support our organs and not stress them out, right, with improper food choices. So as long as the diet is not promoting that, then you're good to go. Just try an experiment. And that's why last season we talked about the ketogenic diet, how to do that vegan. I had Liz McDowell on the show explaining how she's been doing it for the past 4 or 5 years. And she actually provided meal plans if you want to follow that, which I highly, highly recommend, because just to jump into something like that, because the ketogenic diet is very specific, very regimented. If you're looking for results and looking to do it right, you want to learn from somebody who's been doing it, who's already, messed up and learned, so I highly recommend going back and listening to that and downloading the meal plans. Then you have the paleo diet, which is basic, which you'll find on all of my meal plans, where they're saying no greens, whole foods, and I'm down with that. That's basically what I promote as well. And intermittent fasting, which is just giving your digestive system a break. If you have sluggish digestion, if you have, if you feel like you're a food addict and you just need to kind of reel back, or if you have something more severe, then we even talked about doing a medically supervised fast. Because if you have a disease or you're taking pharmaceutical drugs, you want your doctor to be involved with that and to monitor you. They are the experts on the pharmaceutical drugs. They will be able to cut back or tell you no. Maybe if you have some kind of mineral deficiencies or something like that, it may not be for you. That you want to just keep your doctor involved with the conversation. So part of intuitive eating is eating when you're hungry. And so when we talked about it last season, we talked about picking fasting windows that suit when you're most hungry. So you're not just eating on some kind of random schedule that was made up and given to us by society. For example, like the breakfast, lunch, dinner with snacks in between. We end up eating like 6 meals a day. Maybe you're not hungry. Maybe you don't need all that stuff. And what you end up doing is just putting a stress on your system that's unnecessary. And so if you find yourself not feeling comfortable with that, then that's where intermittent fasting can really work for you. And you always want to make sure that you're staying hydrated, because a lot of times when we think we're hungry, we're actually thirsty. So if you read my book, I talk about drinking half your body weight in ounces of water. I know this can be difficult. I understand that completely, but always work towards that goal and have that be your first grab when you're hungry, instead of food, thinking, okay, I feel like I'm possibly hungry here. Maybe I'm thirsty. Let me just grab some water first. Okay. So those are some things to keep in mind. Now, that was originally what I had planned to talk about for today. But then between our last episode and today, I got some really heartbreaking news that Eric Garner passed away. Actually, the first notification I got on my phone was that she was in a coma, and she was in a coma because she had an asthma attack that led to a heart attack that put her in a coma. 2 days later, I got an email saying that she passed away. Now, it's heartbreaking because, one, she's only 27 years old. Two, she had so much promise. I mean, every child, every human being on this earth deserves, right, to live a long, healthy life. But to see someone that age who's doing so much, and she was working fervently, right, to see justice, right, because her dad was a victim of police brutality, and she fought to see justice, for her family for the 3 years relentlessly. I mean, the first year she was protesting twice a week in Staten Island. I mean, she was doing, like she was laying down where he was killed, as a protest. She was very involved. She was involved with politics. She was campaigning with Bernie Sanders in 2016. I mean, she worked hard. She was really passionate about this thing. And I'm pretty sure her family would agree, based off of what I heard her mom say and what I heard her say, is that she could not, she was working to the point of exhaustion, basically. And this is what I wanted to bring up. Like, one, I want to just honor Eric Garner in her memory, and honor everything that she has done, because she took a tragedy and she made that into her mission. She didn't really plan to be involved and be at the forefront of all this, but through some unfortunate circumstances, she became the face, she became a powerful voice, and I respect her for what she's done, and I support everything that she has done and what she's tried to accomplish. And I'm glad that she has encouraged other young people to get into that space and do that. I remember when I was younger, and I'm talking about, like, primary school and high school, I was very much like that. I could relate to Erica. Like, social justice issues, I would get all riled up. My parents actually thought I was going to become a lawyer because I was just so, into that. But I learned that every time that I took these things on, I'm such an empathic person. And if you're energetically sensitive like I am, then you can probably relate, where you take this thing on and it stresses you. I became a really serious person, and I was young and I was angry. I was very angry, and there's residues of that still lingering that I'm working my way out of and around. But I had to learn early on, like in high school, actually more so college, right? That, where my activism lies cannot be there, because my body can't handle that kind of stress. I can't handle that type of stress. I mean, Erica worked. She never saw justice. And yes, a lot of times you'll feel like there's no justice in the justice system. Like, I've experienced it personally, and I haven't even, experienced a tragedy like she has. And in one of her CNN interviews with Don Lemon, she said that, she'd watched the video of her dad being killed over and over and over again, because she wanted to know who was there and where they were, and, all the little details, like, she wanted to memorize. And she also admitted that she needed help getting over the grief of her dad. She hadn't really grieved her dad. She wanted help, mental help, but she couldn't afford it. She was on government assistance. I mean, her story is just so sad. But the lesson there is, one, we all have our different roles to play in activism, and I really respect and admire her for what she did. She did what I would love to do, but I chose a different avenue. And so I'm glad that there are people in those roles who are brave enough to do that, who are willing to take on that fight and do that, because it's very stressful. When you're trying to relate to someone, your personal experience and the experience of a group, and you're constantly having your experience be invalidated, right? And this is a really tough thing for me personally. So the fact that she took this on, I really admire her for that. Secondly, her experience is an example of why we all need to be concerned about self-care. I'm glad she mentioned on a national national media, her need for mental health, to get help from a professional to deal with the grief of her dad. Watching the video of her dad's death over and over and over, it's triggering. It's keeping her in this stressful place, on top of all the things that she's trying to accomplish. And maybe in certain areas she wasn't seeing the progress she wanted. this is where we need to be mindful as people in general, but especially people out there trying to serve others like she was, because what she was doing wasn't just serving the Black community, but it impacts everybody. We all know that NAACP, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, all of these people that came before, what they accomplished actually helped everyone. It didn't just help Black people, it helped everyone. So what she was trying to do was trying to help everyone, but she acknowledged the fact that, she needed professional help, but she couldn't afford it. And so I, want to encourage you all, if you can afford it, and even if you can't, try and find ways, try and seek out a friend, someone who's going to sit and listen. And I just wanted to share my own personal story because maybe it might help someone. When, I lost my grandma, I could not deal, like when I was forced to go to her funeral and see her dead body in a casket, I did not want to see that. When she died, it was like my heart was ripped out of my chest. It hurt me so bad. For 11 years, I couldn't even talk about her without breaking down and crying, right? So now I'm doing good. I'm kind of tearing up, but I'm doing good. I'm still going. Like, I would not even make it this far talking about her and talking about that experience, mentioning her. It would break me. So when I decided to become a health coach, I knew I had to fix that, because I'm like, the whole motivation behind why I do what I do, why I take care of my body, really comes from my grandma. Because when she got diagnosed with diabetes, my whole house, our regimen changed. We were paying attention to food and we weren't before. Right? That opened the doors. It opened our eyes. So she was the impetus for that. She was the spark, and it was something like, I know for sure my mom, she's the one that went with the nutritionist and was doing all these things. She was making the food and she would show me. So she brought me into that whole conversation and experience. And that's basically how it happened. So my grandma, she was the start, right? So if you read my book, you know the story. And if you're on my email list, I talk about it a lot. So I knew I had to be able to talk about my grandma without breaking down crying, right? Now, Erica, I just want to pause right there and say, Erica was so strong. And I was really surprised. Like, when I saw her in the interview with Don Lemon, she was shaking, and I know that there was a lot built up in her she had not released. And it just reminded me of how I was able to deal with my grandma's death. So like 11 years of mentioning my grandma's name and crying every time, like not being able to talk about her. I sought out help from a therapist. And no, you didn't miss it. We're live right now. I was just talking about, Eric Garner and her actually reaching out for help. She did reach out for help to get assistance with getting a therapist. So I fortunately had the means to get a therapist. It wasn't cheap, but at the same time, for professional help, it wasn't ridiculous, I think at the time I paid like $100 an hour, which is generally, how much it costs, but I know there's some online solutions for something cheaper. But basically, I seeked out a therapist and she gave me homework to do. And one of the homework she had me do was fully grieve my grandma. So basically, I had to call her spirit down, and what I ended up doing was I went home, right? I didn't tell anybody about this. And my husband and my mother-in-law were in the kitchen, and I did not want them to hear me because I didn't want anybody asking me, what's wrong or whatever, right? So I closed my bedroom door. I turned on some music pretty loud, and I pulled out all my pictures that I had of my grandmother and our time together. So one of the things that came out in therapy was that I was not just grieving my grandmother, I was grieving the loss of our family, basically. Which, if you want to go deeper into that, you can get the book because it's in there. But basically, so that's, just a point to therapy. There's a lot in there that you learn about yourself, things that are going on. And it's hard to really deal with on your own. So if you can find a good therapist that you gel with, that you jive with, then I definitely recommend that. I think it's worth the money. Absolutely. But anyway, so I went home, closed the door, turned on the music, took out all these pictures. Of course, the pictures come out and I'm hugging on the pictures, like I'm hugging my grandma, and the tears started to come. Then the emotion built up in my chest. So I grabbed a pillow because I knew it was going to get bad, because I had already had, therapy, and I know how it went in therapy. So I basically cried in the pillow. I cried, I screamed, I yelled, and that was her homework, to get it all out, because I was holding it in for so long. And that's, I guess, something I tend to do. And when I was watching Erica on these interviews, it's like I could see when she was shaking, and she said she watched that. I could not even look at my grandma in the casket. I didn't want to see her as a dead body. You know what I'm saying? So with Erica, just watching that over and over, you just imagine the kind of pain that she's reliving over and over and over again. So really, I guess it's not surprising that she would die at the age of 27. Now, if you click on the link to the blog, I talk about more stuff, because what triggered everything was asthma. And if we took asthma out of the picture, right, could she still be living? I honestly feel like she would have had a better chance. This is where taking care of our health and our body comes into play, but I don't want to minimize our mental health. The mind, the emotional state, and the physical state is all really, really important. And I think those are crucial elements to holistic health that we need to be mindful of all the time. And, I'm sorry to start the season off on such a sad note, but at the same time, hopefully I've commemorated her in a nice way, in a great way on my blog. She, should be remembered. She's done so much work. And, a lot of times when we're doing our best work in the world, being of service to the world, we may not see what we're looking to see in our lifetime. But that's not the point. The point is to move the needle forward. So everything she's done is not in vain, and we can see it now. She has done great stuff, and she will be remembered. And, we can all learn from her experience, her story. And if you know someone who is dealing with asthma, definitely download the checklist on the blog. There's a link to this video for that. There's also a link in the comment box to download it on how to alleviate asthma symptoms. Because if we take care of our health, then we can be here longer to do the work that we're here meant to do. Because obviously she was here meant to do the work she was doing. The series of events that happened, it's crazy. Like, it didn't have to happen. It shouldn't have happened. And she took up the torch and became a spokesperson. So that's the lesson that I got out of it. And I wanted to share that with you all. Take care of your body, take care of your mind, take care of your emotional state so that you can continue to do the good work in the world. Okay. I hope you all have a blessed week, and I will see you next Monday. Take care.